Hey, this is Nathaniel from the Spread Effect Show. This interview that I got for you right here was me talking to Rob Stretch from Veterans United Home Loans. VUHL is a nationwide mortgage bank, and Rob is very high up in marketing there. I actually used to work at the company myself, so I've got a good understanding of what they've done in the past, but it's really cool to talk to Rob and hear about what they're doing now, a couple of years down the road. So much has changed. They've got a staff of 60 people in marketing, and this is for just an in-house marketing team for a medium-sized business that does, they probably got about 1,000 employees total, but they're investing very heavily into content production and promotion. Rob talks about the 5 different channels that they've got running of content, all targeting different parts of their target market, which is military home buyers. It's pretty cool to hear about a boring business like Veterans United doing so much with content and social promotion of that content. They've got probably more fans on Facebook than just about any company you can imagine that's not a big brand. And Rob talks about some cool strategies they're using on Facebook to not only take advantage of traditional advertising, but some of the new ad products that Facebook has out there. There's also some cool stuff in this interview where Rob talks about Google Plus and their outlook on where that's heading. I think they're banking pretty hard on Google Plus becoming a bigger portion of Google's algorithm and how content is found via the search engine. And with Google being such a dominant force in the total amount of searches done, I guess their market share is quite high. There's still a place to spend a lot of time and money and thought into where they're going in the future, where it's not just going to be about searching keywords and buying AdWords and trying to rank organically. So sit back, relax, enjoy the first ever Spread Effect show with me and Rob Stretch, and we'll see you on the inside. All right, everybody, welcome to the first ever Spread Effect show. I am your host, Nathaniel Broughton. I am joined today by Rob Stretch, my good friend from Columbia, Missouri. Hi, Rob. How you doing?
What's up, guys? Happy to be here today.
Yes, this is a very historic moment. I was just saying to Rob, it's the first ever Spread Effect show. I may have just said that. I don't know. It's going to be rusty. It's going to be hectic, but we're going to get through it, and that's why I've invited on someone I'm comfortable talking with and someone I've worked with for many years. So Rob, him and I were just out in Vegas at PubCon. We got to catch up there. Previously, we had worked together at VA Mortgage Center, which is now called Veterans United. It is a super successful mortgage bank, mortgage company, licensed nationwide, specializing in home loans for military individuals through the VA loan program. And we worked in marketing there together for many years. So Rob's kind of carrying the torch there now, one of the top guys in marketing, and it's a company near and dear to my heart. So we will talk about some of the strategies they're employing because, all bias aside, they're usually pretty far ahead of a lot of people with online marketing. They do a hell of a job generating leads, being a brand online, pushing out content, ranking, all that stuff. So, ready to get into it?
Absolutely. Yeah,
After,
I'm so honored to be the first person that you asked to be on the show here.
hey man, you deserve it. You deserve it.
Let's do it.
All right. So, what is your title at VUHL, and how many people do you guys have in marketing now? Because I think it's an amazing number.
Right. I think when you were here, we had, 7 full-time employees?
Something like that.
We've gone through some crazy growth. We actually have about 60 now, including interns and full-time. We don't like titles. I guess my title's inbound marketing coordinator, or I use social media director too. Since social's been such a big channel for us.
Sure.
In the last couple of years, which I'm sure we'll go into here.
Sure, yeah. So 60 employees, full-time, part-time, including interns. VUHL keeps everything pretty much in-house. They don't work with a lot of outside vendors. They kind of go at it on their own. And also, I think that kind of forces you guys to stay out on the cutting edge of marketing. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing with the content channels and the blogging, because I think people should first understand the target market is military individuals and veterans, right? I mean, how else would you define who you're trying to go after?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it sounds like. We do mortgages for veterans, so everybody that we deal with on a day-to-day basis does have that military aspect, be it a veteran or active duty military. The other angle, of course, is a potential homeowner, home buyer.
Sure.
Right? So that gives us a little bit more definition when it comes to like targeting different age ranges or whatever. But yeah, I think you nailed it on the head when you said the military is our main demographic there.
Okay, and people should understand also, I think that it's not just necessarily the individual that's in the military. It could be a family member, like a spouse. I know that's a big part of the target demo. And, even other people with looser affiliations as opposed to like active duty Army or retired Navy general, they can be eligible for these benefits. So it's a little further reaching than it sounds initially.
Right.
Talk to me about some of those content channels that you set up to target some of those markets, and define exactly what they are and how you guys stock them with content and how it's part of your marketing strategy.
Absolutely. I think it all starts with our blogs and our blog network. So I guess it was about a year and a half ago or 2 years now, we rolled out what we're calling the Veterans United Network. And the way this is a little different than other companies, a lot of times a company will put out just the company blog, and it'll just be one blog that focuses on everything. So if we were doing this, we might put all the spouse content, targeting military spouses on this one blog, right alongside with veterans news stories, how to use your military benefits, all this in this one blog. And kind of what we decided with the rise of social is that, we can build these different pages and target these people differently. So why would we put it all on one page when we can separate these into different niche blogs? And that's really like fueled our content strategy. It's been putting out the content on the blogs, be it, articles, videos, rich multimedia, whatever it is that we're putting out there. But we're really trying to target based on these subgenres, if you will, when it comes to the military. And then what we can do is use social as the actual subscription method, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so these things get published on veteransunited.com in their own kind of sub-blog area. Each one is unique. Are they set up on subdomains or subfolders? How does that work?
There's subfolders.
Okay.
So we have this directory. It's veteransunited.com/channels, and that'll show you what we're working with. And so just an example here. So we have Military Spouse Central, right? And that's a blog that's focused 100% on, spouses and family issues. And then another example might be Smart Military Money. It's basically a personal finance blog for the military, talking about, everything in that realm, because military people are going to have different payments, different, different things in the personal finance realm there. So.
Sure. So who's editing these things? I mean, so it's one thing to say, all right, we need 5 different content channels. I mean, that's a great idea, but I think a lot of companies are like, all right, who the hell is going to do all this work? So do you have different editors managing each one? Are they assumedly in-house, or did they have previous experience? How did you start to staff that and make sure that they're all someone's taking ownership of them and making sure they're done well?
Right. So we actually do have an in-house editor. So all the content basically goes through him. One of the other things we just hired a social editor as well. So she's kind of been in charge of, all the content going out on social. So we basically have like a blog content editor and then a social editor. The system's worked really well. We basically staff all in-house, like you were saying. We will do freelance agreements with different people. I think the biggest advent in online marketing in the last couple of years has been content marketing, like we're talking about, and the implications are just so far-reaching.
Sure.
I oversee our organic search as well, and the Google authorship markup that's come out, recently. I was actually just reading the study today. This is kind of like getting a little bit aside from what we were talking about.
No, this is good. You bring the hard info. I just talk in generalities.
So, you know what I mean when I say Google authorship markup?
Right. I think the easiest way to say is, when you're going to Google and doing those searches, you see the little pictures of Google Plus profiles next to the articles they've written, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I was reading a study today that was saying that if a search result has that markup and has that rich snippet there with that picture, in some cases people are seeing a 500% increase in click-throughs.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's something, if you're an SEO or if you're an SEO agency and you're not doing that for your clients, or you're in-house and you're not taking advantage of that, I think you're missing a lot of opportunity there, just with all the potential traffic.
Sure.
And that's something that we've taken advantage of.
So when you guys, let me ask specifically, when you guys have these 5 different content channels or however many you have, does each one have a different author Google Plus profile tied to it, or is it all the same one? Is it all, Chris Burke or whatever?
Right. We basically have authors that specialize in different topics.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have one guy that primarily runs Smart Military Money, but the good thing about authorship markup and all this is like the power to leverage guest authors is just huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically what Google is doing here is they're making this graph of authorship on the web, and if they see that Joe Smith over here has written for Forbes and
Mm-hmm.
the Atlantic, all these big sites, his authorship profile is going to be so much stronger. And if he writes on your site, that's giving you a lot of power, a lot of SEO value there too.
So are you guys actively pursuing writers who have written at places like that, asking them to guest on Veterans United's one of their content channels, and or are you going out and getting your guys to guest in those big spots?
Both.
Okay.
All the above. We have a couple people in house. We have Adrian May, who's just been awesome at reaching out to the military spouse community, and she came on board about 2 years ago now, and she's a big name in the military spouse community. So she goes out to all the conferences and does all the mingling.
Nice.
With that community, and she goes out and does a lot of guest writing on all these different military spouse blogs and that whole arena. And she essentially runs the Military Spouse Central channel for us.
That's an important point, because no matter how active you are on the web and cutting edge, you're still mixing in-person relationships and someone who is in that community and or continuing to build relationships in that community to supplement what you guys are doing. I think a lot of, that's cool, because a lot of basement affiliate marketers can't do that sort of shit. They don't have the capacity or the brand or the legitimacy to do it. And I've always liked that about our companies and Veterans United in particular, because you guys have grown along with the changes in online marketing, but also the company's grown to the point where it can be legitimate enough to be involved in those conversations, be front facing, have 1,000 employees, have a NASCAR car, all those things.
And I think it's all evolving. We always talk about over here just the convergence of all these different marketing channels, and I really think we are starting to see that with everything. Search engines, and everything doesn't go back to search, but that's a big marketing channel for us. So we think in terms of search quite a bit, but they're starting to look at social signals. They have been for a while now. I mean, if you search on Bing, you can see Facebook data integrated right into the results.
Right.
Similarly, in Google Plus, you'll see Google Plus data in the results. So the social graphs and these author graphs that are coming out are just having such an impact on search, and it really just plays into every different marketing channel. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
Right.
So, our philosophy here has been the more we can strengthen each channel, the synergy is going to be so much greater, as a whole. So we've really been trying to focus on each channel individually.
Right, and I want to talk about Facebook a lot, because I know you guys have done a lot there, both paid and organically and creatively. But when you're when you're publishing on these content channels on VU.com, how are you spreading the content out socially? You talked about using social as the membership, or I forget the word you use for it, to kind of push this stuff out. So
everybody's guessed at this point, I guess.
Yeah, I think everybody understands that you should auto-publish your blog posts to your social media profiles, but that's still kind of a half-assed answer to I think how you guys do it. What are you guys doing to push that content out to gain fans, to gain followers, to gain people in your circle, so that you can leverage that in the search results and for just to get bigger and bigger and bigger?
I think, well, it's funny you brought up the auto posting. because I think that's a really big misconception of marketers, especially people that don't use social as a lead generating channel. We actually use social for a variety of things, lead generation being one of them. But the auto posting, it just doesn't work.
Why not? Is it because it's Bush League, or it annoys your followers, or what's the deal?
But no, actually, like when you auto post, you're usually doing it through a third party API, right, or a third party program. And Facebook has actually come out and said a long time ago that they devalue these third party apps. So I think they do have a couple approved vendors at this point. But what we've found is that every app that we've tried to publish from just doesn't get the same kind of same kind of push, the same impressions that when we just post like right through the Facebook interface.
Okay.
So going back to the question, you were just asking like how we publish, how we use social to publish.
Yeah, well, how are you? Yeah, so you got this great piece of content, you push it out. Let's talk about Google Plus for a second, because we'll talk about Facebook for a while. How are you guys leveraging Google Plus from publish on through spreading, and how are you ensuring that when you're spreading the content that it gets spreaded very far?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start by saying, so we use Google Plus almost as a completely different channel, and the reason that we're really investing in Google Plus kind of comes back to the whole search thing. Like, we know that we talked about authorship. We know that's a big thing. We know that Google is obviously just such a big force in search, right? Google Plus posts are indexed, whereas Facebook posts have a lot harder time getting indexed, especially when people are sharing or whatever. Private profiles can't get indexed, and Google doesn't have access to Facebook's back end. But so we've been doing some really cool things on Google Plus. One of the things we've been doing is leveraging the Hangout feature. I don't know if you've ever tried the Hangout.
Oh, we do the Hangout for company meetings for remote people and stuff. So
right.
I've used it.
For people that don't know, a Hangout's basically a video chat where you can get I think it's up to 10 people chatting at the same time in Google Plus. And what we've been doing basically is we'll get on these military celebrities, if you will. So we've had a couple New York Times bestselling authors that have been over, on tour and on a tour in either Iraq or Afghanistan. We've had a gold medalist that was a military spouse. We've had these really awesome, military celebrities, and when we promote them, we get all these people that are really big fans and want to get in on the Hangouts. So one example is Brian Stan, who's a UFC fighter, former Silver Star Marine, right? And he's a pretty big name in military circles. We had him on there, and he hung out with us for like an hour or whatever. And it's just this rich, awesome content that these people can go back and share to their followers. We can have people watch it live. It actually all streams to YouTube and posts on your YouTube channel and Google Plus channel afterwards. So, I mean, it's basically a no-brainer. You get this awesome, rich content with a big influencer in the market, and that's really been the driver of our Google Plus strategy. Has been these Hangouts.
Gotcha. And you're leveraging an existing brand or personality in your target market that grows your social sphere, your influence, your circle for the brand, and then you just do that more and more over time, and the circle keeps growing, and then eventually you're dominant. Understood. All right. Well, let's talk about Facebook. Last time I was there, 2 years ago, we were spending, I don't know, 10 grand a month on Facebook ads, buying likes and whatever else. It was certainly less evolved than it is now, both as like a platform and as a strategy. What are you guys doing to promote content on Facebook? What are you guys doing to drive likes? And then I want to talk about why you're spending so much time, money, and effort on Facebook when it doesn't drive the type of leads that Google has or does still. So
Sure.
where did I start on that? Okay, the beginning. We used to get likes, and then where did it go from there?
So we'll start on that. So I think the difference from when you were here, we were VAMortgageCenter.com. We went through this big brand change for people that aren't as familiar with the company.
Hmm.
Switched to Veterans United Home Loans, and really, like, ever since that switch, we've been really just trying to establish ourselves as the premier brand in the space. Right? That's been our goal, and we knew that social was such a strong channel to accomplish that goal,
Right.
that we just had to go in. I think a good thing about having, I won't say a small company, but a medium-sized company that's really quick to adapt to change. We can go in and try different channels that a larger company like whoever, Bank of America,
Right.
whoever it is, wouldn't be able to invest in that quick, right? So we knew on Facebook. So if you go into their ad interface, you can get so specific with ads, right? So
Hmm.
we can go in and target, basically off of a list that we've come up with over the last couple of years based on military-related pages. We can get an audience of about 10 million people that are connected with the military that we can directly market to,
Hmm.
right? And when one really big thing that we've done has been, obviously engagements have been really important, but the branding aspect is just so much more important. So one thing that we look at is, out of our target audience, what do you get? Like, how many brand impressions does a person in our target audience get a year, right?
Hmm.
So I think this year we're set to do 5 billion impressions on Facebook, right?
Hmm.
With about 10 million people in our audience, and so that's saying, I don't know my math here, but
A lot.
that's a lot of ads per person,
Right.
right? So,
What do those ads look like these days? Because I think it started off rather elementary, where we were just buying ads to like the company page and asking them to like us. My understanding is that you guys are using your content channels to publish interesting content to fuel the ads that you buy on Facebook. So it's not just like us because we help military people. It's 7 things that military spouses are doing for Halloween. Add to
sure.
that, like that, right?
Yeah, so we do a couple different things. I think the number one way to build up an audience from scratch, if you don't have one, is just to use the standard Facebook ad,
Mm-hmm.
which is the ad that you'll just see in the sidebar.
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially you can target anybody with that. It's pretty much just a basic display ad, So you can use whatever imagery you want. The only limitation is that you have to use the title of your page as the title.
Right.
Everything else is customizable there. But once you start getting an audience together, we've experimented with a bunch of different ad types. And Facebook keeps rolling out different ad types. Content ads, which will show up in your newsfeed. So basically, you can promote a post that you've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done that to increase engagement throughout our network. The big one that we've used recently has been mobile ads.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing a large percentage of our audience is actually using Facebook through mobile. So those ads have been really hot. But Facebook just keeps rolling out new ad products, post IPO. A big one they rolled out recently that we haven't utilized as much, but we have heard some success elsewhere. You can now target if you have like a phone number list or an email list. You can drop it right into Facebook and target that list.
Oh, nice.
So if you're looking for customer retention ads or whatever that may be, that's a really big option.
That's awesome. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. They just rolled that out. But I think what it really comes down to is just testing it for yourself, because I think it's going to depend on the company, on the industry, etc. We kind of have this mix that works for us, but it's not necessarily going to work for everybody.
Right.
So I think it all comes down to, what metrics do I want to look for? What's success to me? Are you looking to do lead generation on Facebook? Are you looking to build up that network of followers and subscribers? I mean,
Right.
what's success to you? And then from there, you have to look at, what are my KPIs? What's my performance based on money spent? That's just what it all comes down to.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about actually, is because what is success to you guys right now, and what does it look like down the road? I know ultimately it's because you want to generate leads. I mean, you want to build a brand, but leads need to be there to justify the cost long term. Like, I think. I mean, probably. I don't know. The company's getting so big now, maybe not. But what are you trying to do? I mean, success is a like, success is a lead, success is more impressions. How are you evaluating it now, and where do you see it going in the future?
Right. So we measured success in a couple different ways. So growth has been one big KPI for us. So I mean, that's as simple as how large is your audience getting on each channel, right?
Right.
And that plays into branding too. If you have a larger audience, more people are ultimately going to see your ads. That leads into engagements, the second big KPI. And that's essentially, if you have 100,000 fans on Facebook, it doesn't matter if 100 people are talking about it.
Right.
So I know it was like a big stir last year when they released those talking about numbers. I know everybody's seen those on Facebook, where you can essentially see how many people are commenting and talking and
Right.
sharing your posts. And that's on a weekly basis. That's a 7-day sliding scale. So we monitor those pretty closely on our different channels. And if we're finding that, we're getting below a 5 to 10% engagement rate, as we'll call it, and I would define that as talking about divided by total number of fans.
Okay.
I mean, if we're slipping below 5%, then something's up with the content, right? Like,
Yeah. You go spank the editor, right?
For whatever reason, your content's not sparking people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's not doing what it's meant to do. So I don't know if that answers your question on that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, are you guys investing this hard into Facebook and into social because you think Facebook is going to launch a search engine? Do you think you're doing this because ultimately you think it's going to be a place where a greater percentage of your leads are generated?
Yeah, I think really it's the diversity of leads.
Yeah.
And who knows if Facebook will launch a search engine? I know they thought about it. I know it came out. That
Right.
Zuckerberg made some statements about it or whatever a couple months ago. We're not really as concerned with that. I mean, there's implications there. There's also implications just in integration with other search engines, right, and other
Right.
marketing channels. Like, who knows? Facebook could strike a deal with Google. They have the deal with Bing right now. Like, who knows what will happen in the future? All that we know is that right now Facebook's where to be, and it's hot, and we're actually generating leads from Facebook currently.
Yeah.
Pretty substantial portion of leads. So it's worked for us. We did notice there's a big startup cost, a big investment you have to put in, but once you get those channels rolling, everything's been really smooth, and I mean, it's just a different lead source now. So.
Right. I think that's an important point, the amount of cost up front that you have to put into doing what you guys are doing, at least at the scale you're doing.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for a lot of companies to stomach that. I mean, they're probably, only a few years ago came around to the idea of investing money in just traditional SEO if they're trying to build links, or investing in an in-house team, investing in, the singular corporate blog that they do have, and putting money into that maybe was hard. You guys, and I know, have always invested a ton of money in, where are things going in the future. I think that's a pretty unique thing to have. I know sitting in the board meetings, it's almost amazing how they're like, yeah, just go spend all this money on Facebook. We don't know what it'll do, but we know it'll pay off later. So
honestly, one of our big things was, all right, it's this new channel. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. The one thing we do know is if we invest early, when they first roll out their ad products, we know we're going to master it faster than our competitors, and we're going to have that competitive advantage.
Right.
So, ultimately, the subscriptions and the engagements that we get early on are going to be a lot cheaper than our competitors when they, sign on 2 or 3 years later.
Right.
So that's been a big competitive advantage for us, I think, and just something kind of our philosophy.
Where else are you guys looking beyond Facebook and Google Plus? Is there anywhere else out there right now? I mean, I can't think of any, but maybe there might be that you guys are looking to invest for the next future.
Right.
Or is it all in Facebook and
So, yeah, it's funny you asked. So Facebook's really our big one right now. Google Plus is kind of coming up. We just love the platform with Google Plus and the Hangouts.
yeah,
It's really a unique space because you get completely different people, right? You get like the people on Google Plus seem to be a lot more tech savvy, a lot more willing to try new things, try new products that they're putting out. But the big thing I think about Google is just that they own so much of the internet, right? Like,
right,
and they can integrate all of this. Like Google Plus is integrated with Gmail. Like that's one of the coolest features is that you can set up these events and send notifications through email, and just the potential there is just mind blowing. Like everything they can do. Like just picture Google Glass, like the glasses they're making.
right,
I think Google has kind of a unique perspective in the whole social world where they're going to be the first one that's really hitting the hardware market. So, when they start getting more of this hardware out, all this Google Glass or whatever it is, I mean, it's all going to be integrated to Google Plus. So
right.
if you get those glasses and, you're looking around on the street and you want to figure out who people are, like, or whatever it may be, if you get a call from your buddy or whatever,
Yeah,
I think people are going to migrate more toward Google Plus as a channel because it's all going to be contained in there, all that data. if that
Sure.
makes sense.
No, it does. It does. Maybe you're sitting walking down the street and you look at a house you like, and every time you see a house in X neighborhood, pops up the VU Realtor, and get a quote or something. Who knows?
Right, and that could be pretty far in the future, but
Yeah.
But I think we use Twitter too as a pretty big channel. We actually advertise on Twitter. Really, we use Twitter for more or less, not completely consumer facing. I mean, it is consumer facing, but really what we try to do there is just target the influencers in the space.
Right.
Because Twitter is more of a platform that bloggers are going to be on, big names in the space. And that's really what we try to do there. A lot of times you can get a hold of people through that, and you want to have a strong page.
So you're using it more to, engage in conversation with influencers and then leverage them in some other way. Are your ads targeted towards influencers in some way or the other? What would an ad look like?
On Twitter?
Yeah.
So primarily, I mean, like I said, that's one of the big ways that we use Twitter, but it still is consumer facing.
Okay,
ads are
right.
pretty much targeted at the military
Okay.
graphic. One of the other things we use Twitter for is just to spread viral content to get click-throughs. A lot of times what we're doing on Twitter is just curating our best content from the blog network, and we're getting people to see it in a different fashion if they might not be connected to us on Facebook.
Sure.
That's what it's all about. I think it's about giving people different choices. Maybe somebody loves to consume their news through Google Plus or whatever. So we want to give them that option to read about us through Google Plus and to subscribe to our updates. Maybe a different person is all about Facebook, and that's how they want to consume their media.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just all about giving people the right option.
Cool. So how many pieces of content are you guys putting out each week? Do you know?
Right now, I think it's about 15 articles a week.
Okay.
Take 10 to 15. We actually have a video team that works just with social now too, and we're putting out all different stories on there.
Like news stories, or what type of stories?
Yeah, so news stories, stories about our foundation.
Right.
The big thing last year, we launched this employee-driven foundation, and in our inaugural big gala last year, we raised $1.2 million, and it all goes back into veterans causes and community causes.
Yeah.
So that's been awesome for us. So we helped the child of one veteran get a service dog, and that was a really big story, and we did a video on that. And we have some just great pieces of content that are just really colorful, and people love to watch some of these, and
Yeah.
it's been great. So
And all this stuff is a mortgage company reminder that this is all those things like, investing in not only the employees and creating a foundation to doing video work just for social purposes, investing in the team to do that. I mean, that's rare. And also, like, this gets back to being a legitimate company to the point that the way things are going, even online, that you're going to be well positioned versus, 5 years ago, we'd have people that were competing with us that were just living in a trailer and spamming the internet and generating leads and selling them to us. So, yeah, it's all interesting, and I think the company's well positioned, and I definitely think the things you guys are doing are, out in the forefront, especially of a medium-sized business. You think of a company having a, internal video team to do something like that. You think that the only people that can pull it off are like GE or some shit. That's certainly not the case, and I think you guys are a good example of that.
yeah, I mean, coming back, like you were just saying, we're a mortgage company, right? Like
Right.
a lot of people come to me and say, "There's no way we can be on social." We're
Right.
whatever. Some industries it might not work, like a funeral parlor or something. Like, how are you gonna put that on social?
Sure.
Like, it's not gonna make a lot of sense to have a Facebook page for a funeral parlor. Sorry
Right.
if that's you, but but we've taken an industry that's usually looked at as pretty dry content, I would say, and
Yeah.
there's ways to do it right.
Yeah, I mean, it's even like an industry that's looked down upon in a lot of circles, especially, 5 years ago. I think that there's a little bit of a benefit in having that passionate community in the military to market to, but I mean,
Sure.
that doesn't mean that you guys haven't done a lot of great things to harness that, communicate with those people, give back to them. I mean, it's been an amazing thing to watch and be a part of, and it's awesome, dude. So,
Yeah.
one more thing. How has this all tied back to SEO? How is there much focus on traditional SEO? Do you guys care if you rank for VA Home Loan? Does this social effort seem to help you ranking for VA Home Loan? Because, I mean, search still drives a lot of high quality leads and certainly high volume amount of leads.
Sure. Yeah. So, just to start to answer that question, I guess it's kind of a complicated question, but
Yeah.
no, I mean, we still do care about search, obviously, and I think it all comes back to just using the best practices on search, but
Yeah.
when it comes to things that traditional SEOs do or have done in the past, I mean, really what we're trying to do is just get the best content out there, get it to the right people, and if people want to share it, and if people want to link to us or whatever, that's fine, but we just want to make sure that we're providing the best experience for our customers and the best content that we can put out there for our audience.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's all about. These days, I think SEO's changed a lot. You were talking earlier about how 10 years ago or whatever, somebody out of their garage could compete if they knew SEO, right?
Right.
They could outrank you for certain phrases or whatever. I think it's getting a lot harder to do that, especially with Google, with a lot of the changes they're making.
Mm-hmm.
I know a really big one they announced a couple weeks ago was devaluing exact match domains. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Sure you're following a little bit.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, when you had a site a long time ago, they could outrank your, company that's a lot larger than theirs.
Sure.
Just based on the domain that they own. I think Google's really trying to move away from that, and they're taking a lot of these things into account. And it's not to say that, it's all led by social, but we think there's just going to be more implications. It's just not necessarily a risk we're taking because we're getting so much benefit from social already.
Right.
But we're just hoping that plays out too, that search engines just keep bringing on more and more social signals.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because you launched the new brand name you mentioned, a year and a half or whenever it was ago. That came along with the new domain name for a company that relied heavily on search engine marketing. That
Right.
was certainly an issue to be dealt with, and I think the way you guys have built VeteransUnited.com, especially organically, has been almost purely social and content driven,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you will be able to see long term how that plays out. I mean, I think it's already playing out positively, but I mean, one can imagine a couple of years down the road that being a very defensible position, very defensible domain, brand, regardless of where Facebook goes, where Bing goes, where Google goes. I think it's probably going to be near the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, over the last 2 years, we've built a network of 2 million social media subscribers.
Yeah.
For a company our size and in our space, that's just not something people are doing. And it's been great. It's helped us out. It's helped us spread content. I think it's going to help us in the long term with search and everything else.
Cool.
As marketing keeps converging.
So we were hanging out at PubCon. What other events are you going to? What events are good for keeping up on the whole new school world of content marketing, sans SEO?
Right. It's funny you say sans SEO. I think SEO Oz puts on a pretty damn good conference.
Sure.
I always like that one. For people that haven't been out there, it's out in Seattle every year. I don't know exactly when it is this year. Have to check. But
I'll have to get an affiliate link to throw on this.
yeah, that's a good one. And I know Rand and the people at SEO Moz have been into this whole, kind of led this whole charge on calling it inbound marketing instead of SEO. And I kind of like that whole movement because, like we've been talking about, marketing is converging. And, there's a lot of people at companies now that used to just be SEO guys, and I'm one of them, that kind of get sucked into the social and just all these different inbound marketing channels. And I really think it is just, it's all under the same leaf, kind of all the same type of thing.
Sure.
Different hats. But
All right, cool. Well,
yeah.
PubCon was still fun. That was actually really good this year. I'll have to
Yeah.
give it up to him. It was
Sure, yeah.
stories will remain off camera, as usual.
That's probably
All right, well, cool, man. Well, thanks for taking the time to be the first ever guest on the Spread Effect Show. I shall be mailing you one of those shirts
awesome.
in the near future, because that's actually all I had to hang up with our logo and those stickers. So, yeah, well, I appreciate it, and I will catch up with you
Get
soon.
a hold of me and ask me about whatever. You can hit me up at rob@robstretch.com.
There we go.
Check out my blog at robstretch.com.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll be sure to have you back on when people actually do watch the show and we can pump you a little bit more. But for now, we'll just be the number one. All right.
Yeah, always my pleasure.
All right. See you, Rob.
See ya.
Bye.